Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I am, of course, the white collar goon, the creative and artistic manifestation of Angels in Politics. Um, but this is the Angels in Politics broadcast. A lot of people are wondering what is Angels in Politics. It is not just the philosophy. It's not just the philanthropy. It's it's you. All right. It's you. It's the union. It's the bridging of the gap of the spiritual realm and the physical realm. It's the bridging of your subconscious and the conscious state, or it's the bridging of you know confidence and humility. The right brain, the left brain. It's really synthesis. It's really the synchronicity. Um, it's yoga. It's the union. So that's what Angels of Politics is. You find the permanence and the impermanence, and we're just here in that middle ground trying to orient ourselves. We're here trying to crystallize or contextualize where we are in life and how we can um, self actualize, be the optimal version of ourselves, be the best version of ourselves, be self realized. And once we're that, we know what our spiritual gifts are, and with our spiritual gifts we're able to synthesize meaningful work and meaningful relationships, because life is about creating, maintaining, sustaining, cultivating meaningful relationships, and we're going to do that through meaningful work. And we're always going to be working. And if you put yourself in an environment or an ecosystem that is conducive to your spiritual gifts through the relationships that you've established, then you're well on your way, because now you're going to be used as an instrument. And the universal nature, the universal order of things will happen regardless. But positioning yourself, finding an alignment with your personality, whatever that means, with your passion, and having yourself position or being able to pivot, meaning change the way, or reprogram or deconstruct or recalibrate certain ways about yourself, or certain pathologies, certain patterns of behavior that might be indicative to what you feel is true, what you feel is you, what you feel is innate. Um, Maybe just having time to be a witness whilst you meditate, stepping back and meditating, and praying and asking God to transform you as you surrender your ego, because the misidentification of the ego is the cause of human suffering. So, like, while we're telling ourselves that we're this, that, and the third, we're able to witness that, hey, these patterns of behavior have not positioned us, have not put us in the most conducive area for us to be that light, and that's how we express that solar energy. That's how we express that divine energy. That's the culmination of the solar and lunar, for us to be, on and popping. That's how you that's how you figure out, like, yo, I'm that superhero. I am the superhero. I am the archetypal quintessential, like, self, because there's nobody like you, because of your unique characteristics, because of your peculiar traits, because of your um, differences that make you you, and that's what stands out about you. So, like, embrace that, love that, figure that out, and it's not going to be in one day, it's not going to be in 2 days, um, but take your time and just release and just let go, and you're gonna find out that, like, boom, I'm well on my way. So that's just my beginning spiel before I started off. I'm sorry I didn't ask you, have you had your dinner? Have you had a meal as of yet today? Okay, well, it's okay if you're fasting. I mean, that's a good thing too. I would hope you have a meal soon, and I hope what you're eating is conducive to your vessel, conducive to the vessel, spiritually, psychologically, mentally, cognitively, of course, emotionally, socially, lastly, physical. Like, come on, you already know what's good for the physical body. If you're eating it and you're like, oh my gosh, what did I eat that? Maybe you should refrain from eating that so often. Balance is key. Like having a sense of equanimity is what we're all striving for, right? Because we know that, leading or are leaning to the side of our impulses and our indulgences and what is it called, like just ecstasy, like euphoria, like being in that state of bliss at all times isn't practical, nor should we like be looking for that, because we should be reacting in the same sense of extreme despair, disappointment, hurt, suffering, in the same way that we will view something that is extremely good, blissful, euphoric. So it's like finding the equanimity whereby you're able to have that sense of dignity, but stoicism, where in which it's like, hey, every day I'm gonna handle it, whether the outcome is great or whether the outcome is really bad, or whether the outcome is spot on to what I think is going to be. It's like internally you're not really fucking with what I have going on, because mentally I'm aligned. My mind, body, and soul is open for God to use me as a vessel. So it's like, I'm not doing these things to receive fame or recognition or flattery. I'm not doing these things for your critique either, or for your disparaging comments, or for you to call me some trash either. Like, I mean, you can, and you can critique me or you can flatter me, but internally it shouldn't sway who you are or what you're doing, because you're allowing yourself to be used as an instrument. So that's that. Boom. I mentioned before, like, because I watched this anime Hunter x Hunter, which is like actually getting turned up. Like, I'm on season, like, I don't know what season I'm on. Maybe four now. It's actually getting turned up. Um, there is a saying in the beginning, like almost the first episode. Pretty much it was the first episode. The protagonist, uh, his aunt, he lives with his aunt instead of his mom, and his father is, well, that's another story, but his aunt tells him, "Yo, Gon, you're not gonna know a person until you know what makes them upset. Like, you really don't know a person unless you know what gets them fired up, and unless you've seen them upset and you know like the root cause of what makes them upset, then you kind of know like surface level a person. Like, like if you're dating somebody and things are going good, you might be like, oh my gosh, this person is great, and this is amazing. And then it's like, oh shit, like that person comes home and things aren't so good, and you realize, or you might say something or you do something and it's like, oh, I had no idea you were going to react like this. If I would have known that, if I would have known you're that type of person, then maybe I wouldn't have, maybe I would have used some protection with you. Maybe I wouldn't have raw dogged you the whole time. Maybe I would have, gone about this in a different way, right? So it's a lot of things. It's a lot of things that could be in the back of your head as to like why things are going down. But yeah, knowing what makes somebody upset is a good way to like figure out, or ascertain what kind of person are you, right? Because like what ticks you off. So boom, I'll talk about myself, because what else would I talk about? um I was at an ashram, or for you all who have been following the Angels in Politics broadcast, know that I was in an ashram for a month, and I was living there for the living yoga training program, and I was like fully immersed in the processes and the constituents and the various branches of integral yoga. And integral yoga has many facets, a myriad of constituents: Raja yoga, Hatha yoga, Yana yoga, Bhakti yoga, Karma yoga was a big one. Selfless service. So I mean, and then there was a curriculum. Like, we read things, and we had assignments, and we were out there doing a lot of karma yoga, or karmic service, and working in the farm, and working in housekeeping, and working in the kitchen, and the food that we cooked in the kitchen was directly from the farm, and it was this self-sustaining community, and it was phenomenal. I mean, I mean, I'm going to continue to speak about it because I'm still processing it. I've been out of the ashram for a few weeks now, but it still was like, it was like wild. You know, I was in a world of, it's a world of its own, but it was still in the state of Virginia. You would have thought I moved to a different country and went back 200 years or something like that, or maybe not 200, maybe so. Like, you know, it's like it was just, it was an indescribable experience. But I am a talker, so I can, through time, I'm going to express to you how much that impacted me, or the magnitude of its impact, and how it can reshape and reform and enhance and rejuvenate and revitalize an individual's spirit, emotions, socially, cognitively. I mean, it expanded my cognitive bandwidth tremendously, so to the point where it's like I'm still like trying to process it and like hone in on direct that direct focus, the direct mindset. And even Marcus Aurelius talks about that in Meditations, about like the directing mind is the most powerful tool. And we talk about in meditation at the ashram how like the power of meditation is like focusing the mind on one pointedness, on a specific point whereby you're able to like sift through obstructions in your thought processes to a point where it's like a laser beam. I think of Cyclops from X-Men, where it's like you're just shooting straight ahead and nothing can stop you, because you're like, your mind is sharp, and your mind is a muscle, and you've gotten, or you've gained control of this muscle, because in order to be a mastermind, you have to be a master of your own mind. Your mind has been running rampant. You know, most people can't control their thoughts. Most people can't control their impulses, or their senses, or their desires, or their wants, or their, what they think that they need. And it's 9 times out of 10, it's not something they need. So it's like all of those things are running rampant. And it's like, once you're able to like reel the reins in, like if you're the chariot, those horses are like taking you everywhere. Once you're able to like pull in and be like, hey, I'm running the show here, then it's like, now you're on that Cyclops shit. Now you're like shooting your laser, and you're like, oh man, like, damn, I'm over here taking shit down. Like, boom, 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 I'm doing what I need to do. I've leveled up. So I say all that to say, like, what made me upset whilst I was there? Well, there was this individual there, and he didn't make me upset. Shout out to the homie. Like, I'm not gonna name drop him, but he's a cool dude. I tried to add him on Facebook. I don't think he would approve me. But shout out to the homie. He was like a young guy, young in the sense like 10 years younger than me. And I felt like he was just so lackluster, dude. He was just so lackluster. And I remember that term from like one of my fraternity brothers, and I thank him for that, because I never heard anybody say that in a sentence, or use that in a term. I use that in like common conversation, but he would use the term lackluster and mundane a lot, and they're synonymous. Like, if somebody's mundane, it has a mundane personality. If somebody's lackluster, it's like they're not they're not going above and beyond, or they're not expressing themselves in any like out. I don't even think expression would be the way. Like, how you do anything is how you do everything. And I'll say that again. How you do anything is how you do everything. So if somebody's like lackluster, that means they're like subpar. That means they're inept. That means they're almost inadequate. That means they're not they're not scoring or performing at the benchmark at which they should be. And it's not, maybe that's the point. Like, whatever they should be is not up to me, or up to what other people have to say. It's up to what God has to say, what the universal nature, the universal order of things should be. And like I say, this guy's young, so he's like 19 or something like that. But I felt like this dude was so like, it annoyed me, put it that way. Not to the point where it's like, oh man, I wanted to like do something to him physically. Like, no, I'm not that person. But it's like, it annoyed me to the point where I'm having this conversation with you all. It's like, he was just so lackluster in everything. Like, if you spoke to him, it was like talking to a brick wall. Like, asking him a question yielded a 5 second to 7 second delay, and he spoke like this, and it was just a drag to talk to this drab gloomy, mundane kind of guy. It was like every day, like the way he walked, he didn't even pick up his feet. He like dragged his feet. You can hear him in the corridors, like you knew he was coming. Just he didn't even pick up his fucking feet. He just dragged along, and you spoke to him, you said what up. Half the time you didn't even get a response. If you did talk to him, it was slow. When he was, whenever he had the karma service, so when he had kitchen duty, the dishes, he couldn't wash dishes because all of the, I mean, we had a huge ass industrial machine that you put the dishes in, like if you worked at a fast food place, you just put them on the rack and pushed them into the machine and they washed themselves. But all of his dishes, like 50% of his dishes still had like grime and just food stuck to them. And it's like, bro, it was to the point where my hands were like, bro, like what the fuck, like what is up, bro, like what is going on? So it's like everything that he did, like if it was, we were in the farm, he like picking up manure with the shovel. I mean, this guy was skin and bones, like literally like skin and bones, and that has nothing to do with your strength, because you can be a skinny person and have like that passion, have that fire, have that aggressiveness. There wasn't an aggressive bone in his body, and I don't need him to be aggressive, but he just wasn't like, it's just almost, he was just lackluster in everything. Like the farming, he was lame, and there would be times where you'll see everybody working and he could just stand there and like, well, it was one of those people that you had to like tell them, and I wouldn't be the one telling them, whoever was in charge would be like, you can't pick up this and do this, or we could use you here, or how about you do that? But like, he wouldn't take the initiative. There was never an initiative taken with him. He wasn't an asset in any way. He wasn't an asset socially. He wasn't an asset physically. He wasn't an asset in a group setting. I mean, it was just one of those things where it's like, why are you here? That's what was like really like, pulling at my, spiritual or my emotional or my social heartstrings. It was more so like, dude, like, why are you here? Like, why? Like, even the way he did it was, I'm at an ashram, so we do yoga. I saw him in the yoga, I saw him in the hatha classes a few times, and his asanas, his poses were lazy as fuck. Like, I mean, just the way just the way he did yoga was just half-ass. It was like everything about this dude. I was like, yo, like, what is up, man? Like, what is up, dude? Like, what is going on? Like, go home. Like, go somewhere. Like, you should be in your home is the ashram, because he lived there. So it's like, you should be using this to, and maybe he was. Maybe he was using this time at the ashram to figure himself out, to figure out, because like, Jordan Peterson does talk about like the five personality like traits, that the five traits that make up your personality. And he says how most of his videos were overwhelmingly, most of his speeches, most of his talks, most of his videos are overwhelmingly, looked at or received by men, right? 85% to 90% of his material is like, is being activated, or is being received by men at these alarming rates. Like, why 90%? It's not like he's walking around talking just about guys. It's like, but he says that, what he offers is like responsibility to men, like, or the choice that you as a guy can make your own sacrifice. You choose you're where you're going to exert your your gifts, your talents, your whatever the case may be, but you can pick. That's one thing that you have to do, because as women, their sacrifices for the most part is already outlined for them. They have the greatest gift of the world, because they are the universal givers. Like, they are the universal, you know, transient. They are the intermediaries to to life itself. They are the transportational like vehicle of like the divine nature of life in itself. Conception starts with women. I mean, there's no way around it. So, like, women are aware biologically, anatomically, physiology, like, physically, psychologically, they are aware that if they choose to procreate, because it is their choice, if they choose to procreate, they don't have a decision, or they don't choose to decide whether they want to, like, hey, I can have this baby. Do I really want to like give a fuck about it? Do I really want to be a mother to it? Like, there isn't one of those choices. It's like guys can impregnate a woman and then hop on a bus or a plane or a train or some type of automobile, and he can escape, quote unquote. I mean, there's no way of escaping in the universal sense. Everything that you do will come back to you. But for the physical sense, for all intents and purposes, a guy can plant his seed places and not necessarily have to face the the physical ramifications initially. I mean, it always comes back. It always comes back to him. But physically, at that moment, he doesn't have to face what he has to do with his decision to create a child. But a woman has to bear that. Like, a woman literally bears the fruits of that experience. So, like, women are aware of their social responsibility, whether they know it or not, and 9 times out of 10 they do know it. If they want to have a family, there's not too many women who can bear children and then just give it. I mean, it's one thing for adoption, but like, they're not leaving it somewhere on the side of the road. I mean, that has happened before. That's happened in the past, and it might even still happen now in the future or in the present day. But it's, I mean, imagine the cognitive, the mental, the psychological, the social, the emotional strain on a human being, particularly a mother who can say, like, I left my newborn baby on the on a railroad station track or a bus stop or in a dumpster, and I walked away from it. Like, you know, like, imagine like how that person's going to be for the rest of their life. You know, imagine like what that's going to be, and it's not a good thing. But like, for guys, they have, and it's been for since the beginning of time, lived plenty of lives without that type of, maybe with that, still with that strain, but it's like, it's not the same for them. So what the sacrifice is like, and I'm bringing this back to the guy, is like, men have to choose what they want to do in order for them to be the provider, the patriarch, the leader that they're supposed to be. Every guy has a duty. Every guy has his destiny, and within your destiny, you choose to express yourself, and you choose to cultivate and build a family. And if you're not in alignment with what your purpose is or what you want to do as far as your meaningful work, then that will be a direct correlation to how you interface with women, how you interface with your potential wife, how you interface with your potential children, because you as a guy needs to be grounded enough to be able to provide for them. So this 19-year-old guy doesn't have a kid, he doesn't have a wife, he doesn't have that type of thing. So one thing about a lot of guys is like, if they aren't challenged, or if they haven't found something that is interesting to them, or if they haven't found like their path, then they can essentially wander about aimlessly. Like this guy wasn't in his room just playing Xbox, but that's what a lot of guys do. Like, if they don't have their purpose, they can just play video games. They can just watch anime. They can just be in their house and not do anything and put on weight and drink beer. And it's like, because there isn't a wife that is attached to them where it's like that driving force, like, I need to provide for this woman. This is a beautiful woman. She's not going to just live here and be around here for free. Like, I mean, not for free in the physical sense or fiscal sense. Like, no, like, I have to provide something emotionally, socially, psychologically, cognitively, spiritually. And with this woman, if I love her, I would need to find something that will allow me to yield a certain life or income to make her life better. And if her life is better and my life is better, then we can bring in the next generation, the fruits of our labor, the fruits of what we are building together romantically, i.e. a son, a daughter, so on and so forth. So you have these guys, or this guy in particular, who can be so lackluster, and it's not that he's a bad guy, he's just a 19-year-old kid. Or he could be 22, or he could be 25, or he could be my age and be like 30 and be like, yo, dude, like, you haven't found what makes you tick yet. You haven't found what you want to do in life yet. But because you're not compelled, because you haven't found it, it's like it's like you're walking around, but you're like a shell of yourself. You're like a shell. You're like in this cocoon, so to speak, but you're just like waiting for something to inspire you, for you to blossom and become that butterfly, so to speak, or become that phoenix. You need to go through the ashes so you can rise out of the ashes and become the divine creature that takes off and inspires the world. But it's like, when you're 19 years old, it's like, what the fuck are you inspired by? Like, when you're in your 20s as a guy, like, what have you gone through that makes you say, yo, I'm here to be the best version of myself? Most men don't experience these type of self-effacing, self-reckoning moments in life that forces them to mature until they embark upon a romantic relationship with women. Not the high school girlfriend, not the like hookup with the sorority girl in college. Like, no. Once they find that they have love and fallen in love or anything with love with a woman, and let's just add it, the cherry on top, and this is a huge cherry, and she becomes pregnant, that is 9 times out of 10 what it takes for many men who haven't found direction, who haven't found purpose, who haven't found intention. That's the biggest intention now. That's your biggest purpose now. You have a wife, or you have a lady, and you have a baby on the way. Whatever you were doing before, now you're picking up your feet when you're walking. Now you're hoeing that hay and manure in a different way. Now when you're going to work, you're driving with the intention. Now you're starting to recalibrate and reprogram how you think, because of the societal implications and just the physical implications, because you are physically seeing this woman every single day, and you will see the manifestation of this baby, or the manifestation of what this marriage is. And now you have to provide the house. Now you have to provide the welfare, the well-being of more than yourself. So when guys don't have that, it takes time. There is this gap of social ineptitude, or social reclusiveness, or this social, just this disparagement of like, why are some guys like waking up in the morning and they're going after it, and they're like boom boom boom, and they're so structured, and they're so conscientious, and they're so industrious, and there's some guys who are just not. And it's like, because they don't have to be. They don't they haven't they haven't they don't have to be. God bless. Namaste. Namaskar.